Hello, YouTube, and welcome to the very first video on this channel and the very first live stream of the It Be What It Be podcast. So, this is meant to be an introduction to this channel and to give you a bit of context. You see, throughout my life, I was always interested in learning more about people. We are the peak life forms and the peak of evolution on this planet. We are the creature that has the most amount of influence on this world and existence because there's no other life form that is dominant over us. And in fact, we are dominant over other life forms such as animals, plants, and etc. There's no aliens or robots, at least not yet, not that I know of. So, with that being said, I am also a person, and so I'm also curious about myself and how I work as well. Given this curiosity, finding out the answers I was looking for wasn't always easy. Not all of the answers are available, not even now, and some of the answers that were available were insufficient. For example, school doesn't teach what I wanted to know. And I think that that's going to be a sentiment that's going to be shared amongst a number of different people. School doesn't teach you how to do your taxes. And I mean, there's even channels such as School of Life, which talk about how it doesn't tell you what type of friends to make, or it doesn't necessarily tell you who to get into a relationship with, among other factors. School pretty much is based off of this factory model, and it teaches you and conditions people to be able to get a job, to show up repeatedly and on time, to be able to act in an orderly fashion and in alignment with the preferences that are established by said school, to do your assignments and to do your homework, which could be considered overtime in a manner of speaking. And also at the same time, school wants us to be conditioned into being this worker so that then we're used to going to work, listening to authority as well, listening to instructions, and being diligent, being on time, being consistent 5 days a week, so on, so forth, etc. So, school doesn't teach what I wanted to know, and conventional wisdom at the time was to learn about what school doesn't teach you from friends and family. Thing is, family is not necessarily equipped to know. For example, making a baby doesn't mean someone is capable of taking care of said baby. And someone can have a car without a license, for example, and there's an entire discussion to be had about whether or not a parenting license ought to be a standard, but nonetheless, you can imagine that someone can be a parent without necessarily knowing or being ready to take care of the baby. I mean, literally, you have the whole stork fantasy about how, or myth, if you will, whatever you really want to call it, about how kids can be left to an orphanage or can be put up for adoption because those parents were not necessarily ready to take care of kids. And so there's that, and friends are just as clueless as you. They're going through some of the same challenges at the same time. And a lot of my friends, for example, didn't know anything about, say, for example, moving out of their parents' place. In fact, some still haven't moved out to this day. And there's an argument to be made about whether or not that's even worth it in today's economy. And that some of them aren't even really working full time, especially given their age, which I'll get to in a moment. A lot of people in my past were also very inarticulate, frankly, very inarticulate, and essentially suffered from alexithymia, which is the inability to recognize or describe one's own emotions. They would claim that there are no words to explain their feelings to cover up their alexithymia while appearing competent. And what it is that I'm trying to get at over here is that these people would maybe have some sort of particular feeling or emotion. And because they were incapable of articulating said feeling or emotion, what they would instead do is they would claim that it is impossible to articulate because it is intangible, which I heavily disagree with, but nonetheless, they would claim that it's impossible to articulate. And that would allow them to still maintain the appearance of authority and the appearance of they know what they're doing while also curbing and eliminating their incompetence in them not knowing how to articulate what it is that they're feeling and their emotion because it's impossible to articulate it according to what it is that they would assert, which I just think is absolutely ridiculous. And I really do disagree with that. But nonetheless, here we are. And so I think it is important to state here, as I was saying before, that I alluded to age. I think it's important to state here that I am a millennial in his 30s to give you context regarding the era that I grew up in, which would have been the 90s and the 2000s as well. So some of the people that were some of my friends that didn't necessarily move out or are not even working full time. Some of these people are over 30. There's a lot of content out there that talks about how there is comparisons between people in their 30s nowadays versus their parents or even their grandparents, and how they were able to have a house, a car, a family, married with, let's say, two kids and white picket fence and the dog as well, So able to go on vacations too, able to eat out on a regular basis for the whole family, not just one person, et cetera, and so on, ABC, XYZ, you know. And all of that being said, I think it's just very interesting to highlight how me being in my 30s and some of the people that I know of, they just were particularly inequipped. Again, as I was saying, my friends didn't really have the life experience or even knew other people had the life experience or had any necessarily awareness about some of these different factors that I was looking for answers to. So your friends, essentially, the whole point being, are just as clueless as you. And so, speaking of culture, because with my age range being as a millennial in the 30s, to give an idea of the information that was available to me at the time and where the culture was at the time in the 90s and 2000s. I was born in a Western country as well with immigrant parents, to also give you some more context. Now, I don't want to say too much because, as you can see, I am trying to conceal my identity clearly, even though the reflection with my sunglasses is not doing a great job necessarily of it. But hey, this is the first video on this channel, so I hope that y'all will cut me some slack and will appreciate the background that I set up, even the microphone, some of the outfit that I have on, got some headphones on. I hope that y'all would appreciate some of that as I continue to work and build this channel. But that being said, you know, that I want to speak about a multitude of topics without having to worry about the impacts to my quality of life from people who don't like what I have to say. Frankly, I don't think it's fair that I would lose job opportunities potentially for trying to help humanity despite some people not liking what I have to say or how I'm going about this. I also don't want to let people off the hook because there are elements of Homo sapiens and humanity as a whole that, frankly, I don't like and that I want to address and call out in an attempt to inspire a positive difference. But you can imagine, for me to talk about elements and aspects and factors of Homo sapiens, of people, of the human race, of this species that I don't like, that's going to personally offend some people. And they're going to take it as a personal attack because they may identify with a particular idea that I am not in favor of, which I can give you an example later on as well. And as a byproduct of that, they would then feel that it is necessary to retaliate against me. I mean, one factor that I really don't like about Homo sapiens that I'm really not proud of is just how vengeful of a creature that they are. Of course, me being a Homo sapien as well, but I try not to really be very retaliatory. I try not to be, and there's some nuances there. But the point that I'm trying to make is that the people, if they feel slighted, they really have this tit for tat mentality and they really want revenge in a way. And it's almost as though people don't get it that a particular action or behavior or statement has slighted them unless they retaliate. And so for me, even just saying that, for me, even saying that I'm not really in favor of how vengeful Homo sapiens can be, some people are going to identify with that and probably may want to try to make my life harder as a result. And so I've noticed that Homo sapiens can be very cruel to others, and that goes against the grain, very cruel to others that go against the grain or don't conform to the cultural status quo. This is proven time and time again over history. Because despite being in civil society in the modern day, if people generally don't like you, you could end up homeless, in jail, or even, to make it YouTube friendly, unalived. Hence, hiding my identity gives me a layer of protection from the consequences that may come from, frankly, pissing off members of the most dominant life forms on this planet, which have the greatest impact over one's quality of life, even though I'm trying to help. It be what it be. Hence the podcast name. That being said, so I've managed to learn quite a lot in my 30 plus years of life, which is crazy to me since most humans throughout history haven't lived past 20 years of age. So, in a way, I'm making content that my younger self would have wanted to hear. And that's one of the main inspirations of this channel because for a lot of the answers that I would have been looking for, I don't think that it would have been necessary for me to go through some of what I went through to get those answers. In other words, learning the hard way, you know, that I definitely do think that if someone was there to tell me, and in particular, to tell me in a way that I would respect and that I thought was compelling and made good points and made good logical sense, that I just would have been able to avoid a lot of strife, essentially, and be able to get to where I am a lot faster. So, in a lot of ways, I'm just speaking to my younger self, to be frank. And the tools that have helped me the most, besides life experience, to get these answers include the liberal arts, which has the trivium, for example, so grammar, logic, and rhetoric, the quadrivium, which has arithmetic, music, geometry, and astronomy. Then there's also social sciences. So we have history, philosophy, and psychology, sociology, economics, and geography, and of course more, but those are some of the main ones. And these tools have managed to help me with my ultimate goal of learning more about people, interpersonal interaction, which I say instead of social interaction, since there are pro social behaviors like listening to someone and antisocial behaviors like ignoring and ghosting that are involved in interpersonal interaction. Behaviors that I don't particularly like and certainly would be going more into in a future video or a live stream. However, in some cases, I do think that it can be very necessary to ignore and ghost, particularly when a conversation with someone is unproductive, in that, for example, someone's not authentically participating in the conversation with you. They're not following the cooperative principle, as it were, not being cooperative. and being particularly sleazy and really sullying the sanctity of that conversation, which I consider to be extremely despicable, and to be frank. And beyond that, if someone's just being outright flagrantly disrespectful, quite antagonistic, among other factors, and there's a lot more that I can go into, but that just gives you a bit of a taste of some of what it is that I am not in favor of. There's also societies as well, and ultimately life and the human experience. With some of this, which is laid out in the description to my channel. And in terms of interpersonal interaction, how it tends to happen would be within the context of either family, friends, significant others slash intimate relationships, and colleagues or workplaces. So, four different pillars, essentially. All of which I intend to discuss in this YouTube channel in the hopes that it makes life and people easier to understand for others so they don't have to go through and they don't have to learn some of what I learned the hard way. Because despite what was conventional wisdom as I was growing up and what may still be conventional wisdom now, I do believe that this can be taught. I do believe that the intangible is quantifiable. I do not think that we have maxed out the potential of language. And I do not think that we are at the end of history where we have it all figured out and that there's nothing else to learn. In this channel, you can expect to hear cultural commentary coming from me and cultural hot takes, as well as discussions on the mechanics of life and how they apply to the human experience throughout history to the modern day. And in the end, I hope you learned something, and I hope to make a positive difference in the world. I hope to inspire more critical thinking. And finally, I hope you enjoy what it is that I have to say. I'd really appreciate it if you would leave a like, comment, and subscribe. This is very much so a new channel happening in December of 2024. So, pretty much trying to set myself up to hit the ground running in 2025. And I'm still going to be figuring out some of what it is that I want to do in terms of how I want to organize this channel. And there's a quote that I like from a YouTuber that I've been following for a while who's now over 3 million subscribers, Chris Williamson. And that quote is, "We're building the plane as we're flying it," because a lot of people say just start and all of that. And as you can see, I don't have it all figured out with, some of the reflection here and all of that. So maybe I'll reshoot this introduction video. But nonetheless, if you've made it this far into the video, I really appreciate your time and I really appreciate you giving me a chance to hear me out and see what this channel is about. And at this rate, I just hope to continue to grind and to continue to share some of what it is that I've learned while also learning myself along the way because I don't want to claim that I have it all figured out. It's very much so a learning journey for me. And I think that there's an element of life that's quite beautiful like that we don't have it all figured out and that we are making history as we speak right now. Thank you very much for your time.